Flipping it up and out. Bogut! Ariza's blocked by Bogut.
Good recovery by Andrew Bogut.
Let's get rogue.
Welcome to Rogue Bogues, the basketball series. Myself, Andrew Bogut, and my good friend Mike Procopio. Mike, how is the US treating you?
Bogues, I'm home alone. My family is at Disney World, believe it or not, and I'm not there. I had some stuff I had to do here, workouts and some clinic stuff and some work to do. But not only am I not at Disney, which I'm a fucking Disney freak, my favorite show, I don't know if you watch, you ever watch Yellowstone, Bogues?
Oh, man, big fan, yep.
Oh, it's my favorite show of all time. Not of all time, but it's my favorite show right now. Not only that, but 1883 and 1923. But Rip from Yellowstone. So my wife has a conference in Orlando. So she takes the family to Disney and does like double dip. So like it's a big time company. It's called Banfield Veterinarian Company, and it's all over the United States. And they've got like, you know, something for the employees at night. They've got Rip doing a question and answer. I'm literally like beside myself. I just found that out today. I could go, you know, I can go in there. Maybe I could play Jimmy on the, and reenact Jimmy so he could tell me to shut the fuck up. Like that guy's one of my favorite.
You're not getting on a horse. You're not getting on a horse though, bro. That's the bad news.
Somebody's gonna be getting on me.
I've got the same problem height wise. I'm not getting on no horse neither. I got to find a steroided up horse to get my ass on that thing. But
or they'll be herding me in the field, me and the rest of the cows. Yeah. But no, everything's good.
Yellowstone might or might not have been the reason why I just recently bought a ranch, pro. So
you bought a ranch, Bogues?
Oh yeah, somewhat a ranch. Not because of Yellowstone solely, but definitely helped. I've been looking for land for a long, long time, and found a nice property in an undisclosed location with a few hundred acres, and pretty pumped about that. So got some four-wheelers out there, and nice place to take the kids and disconnect off Wi-Fi and all that fun stuff. So. Yeah. I just there's actually horses on it, funnily enough. The previous owners left allowed him, because I'm such a nice guy, to leave his wild horses on the property, because it's good to keep away snakes and all that kind of stuff, and they keep the trails pretty flat. So once you visit, pro, once you finally, put some cash together.
Seriously. I now look, I'm all for the deal we signed with the show and everything, but now I see that you're building studios. And I'm like, come on, Bogues. Like, you're building studios over there. I'm eating spam out of a fucking can here. Can you get me over there to do a clinic or something? I mean, you are one of the most powerful basketball people in Australia. Can you help a brother out? I mean, come on, man.
We'll figure something out. We're definitely going to do something. So, listeners, if you would sign up for the pro camp, no pun intended, let us know, because we'd definitely like to do it down in the future. But enough of the boring stuff. Our listeners are here for the basketball news and analytics and fun stuff and shenanigans, and let's get rolling right with it. Team of the week. Interested to hear who you've got. I'm going to let you go first this time, pro.
Bogues, I got what you got. So let's. I got the Memphis Grizzlies. Oh no, wait, you don't have the Memphis Grizzlies, do you? You said they were weak, right? I mean, you weren't weak, but their schedule was weak.
I had the Memphis Grizzlies in the running. I've got honorable mentions, Memphis and Boston. The only reason I didn't have them in there is because I thought their schedule was very light. Over the last week at least. Memphis had San Antonio twice, Utah, Indiana. Boston had Chicago, New Orleans, Brooklyn, and Charlotte. So I ended up, I'll go first then, since you forced it out of me, but I got Denver getting the nod, and that's only because they beat the Lakers, Phoenix. People might say, okay, not great teams. They beat the Clippers with no Jokic, and then beat Orlando. And Orlando's, are not easy beats. So, that's kind of my thinking around it. Denver's playing, really good basketball at the moment. They're sharing the ball. They're actually, hold the phone. I could be wrong. It's 103-102 for Orlando in the fourth. They've made a little comeback. So I could be wrong on the team of the week. That game's going as we record. But I just think Denver being able to have Jokic in and out of the lineup and actually being able to win those games now is a big step for them. I think Aaron Gordon, I had a friend that's a Denver fan, and he wasn't a huge fan of getting Gordon, but he said this season he's been really happy with the way he's played. He's played much better basketball for them. I think KCP's been solid for him. Bones off the bench has been good for him. So they've got a really good mix. And for them to be, top 1, 2, 3 in the West is pretty impressive, albeit Jokic, another MVP caliber year. So that's, I think probably Memphis and Boston, probably a little bit hard done by the old Bogues, but I had to go with Denver just based on they beat a good Clipper team that was all healthy bar Paul George without Jokic in LA is an impressive win for me.
Yeah, Bogues, I mean, this Denver team is the real deal, at least in the regular season. I think in the postseason, offensively, if they have enough offensive weapons to really, to make a big splash to get to a final. But I think we talked about it last year with this team, the importance of Aaron Gordon just accepting a role. Like, I think, young players in this league, when you're lottery picks and you're top 5 picks, top 10 picks, like you have a certain expectation of like, oh, I want to be, an all-star. I want to be this. I want to be that. And then like, in Orlando, he's really good, but they never really won. And then he gets shipped out to Denver. And, I think at first he was like, I think I'm reading in the media, like, I want more of a role, this and that. I think once he's figured out, like, I got to be the tough guy, the defender, the cutter off of Jokic. Jokic makes my job a lot easier because, look, Jokic is obviously the franchise player, one of the best players in the history of their franchise. But he makes the game so easy because of his ability to pass. So, like, Gordon could space, he can cut. He doesn't have to really, like, get plays called for him. I mean, Jokic, anytime Jokic has the ball, that's a play for you because he'll find you. And they've got a lot of weapons. Like, they got Jamal Murray, who sort of plays that Andre Miller role, big guard who could score. He could shoot it better than, Miller could. But, he's got that big guard who could score, play 1 and 2. Caldwell Pope's playing well. Michael Porter, I'm not a huge fan of, but he scores it. And then second unit, Bones Highland, I've got him rated as one of the top backup guards in the league. Bruce Brown plays hard. So they got really good coaching. Like you said, they won without Jokic, a game or so. So, I mean, I like them. I'm a big fan, and they've done some good things. And, they're fun. They're a fun team to watch because they sort of grind it out. They play through the post. It's not really like a normal NBA team to watch, Bogues. What do you think? Yeah,
and you pointed out Aaron Gordon's spot on. He's actually finally realized that if he cuts, 50% of the time, Jokic is getting him a layup. Early on in his tenure there, we noticed that he was standing in the corner, from 3 a lot, not a whole lot of movement, where he's realized he's cutting. The other thing I've noticed is he's passing the ball better. And that's contagious from Jokic. He's making the simple plays at times where it's a swing or a hockey assist, even though you don't get the stat. And his numbers have been better. You look at his numbers this season compared to last when he arrived in Denver. His first season in Denver wasn't great. He was 10 a night. He's 15 points last season. He's at 16.5 points this season with better clips from the field by 7-odd%. He's shooting almost 60% from the field. He's shooting 4% better from 3, almost 38%. He's averaging more rebounds. He's about the same with assists and steals and block shots. So he's having a better career year than he has the last couple of seasons, and they're winning, so it's no surprise. He's 27 years old. I think he's starting to come into his own a little bit about playing that role, still being a good second, third option next to Jokic, and he can just get a lot of cheap baskets. The pressure's off him. It's not Orlando Gordon where we're going to throw it to you, get us a bucket to keep us in a game. You can sneak up on people being that third, fourth option sometimes. So I think his growth has been good to watch, and he's accepted that role. So who do you have?
Bogues, I got the Memphis. I was going to take Boston because, Boston's so good, but we've picked them a bunch. And I don't know if I've picked Memphis yet this year. And yeah, they had a little softer schedule of the teams they beat, but 9-1, they won 9 in a row. Got to give them a little bit of credit for that. For the first time in a long time, they got Jaren Jackson back in the lineup. And like consistently in the lineup, he's averaging, 16 and a half and 6.8. Really good defensively for them, really good offensively. Obviously takes a little bit of pressure off of Ja Morant. I think Ja Morant has been establishing himself this week as maybe one of the better, probably one of the top 10 dunkers in-game dunk. And I'm not a huge dunk guy, but it is pretty impressive what he does in-game dunk-wise. It reminds me a lot of Westbrook early in his career. He's one of the better in-game dunkers on people that I've seen in a long time. He's got a lot of balls. I don't know if he's got a lot of brains, but he's got a lot of balls. You've been able to go up against those guys and do that. But they're playing well. Like they've obviously had some injury issues with guys going in and out of the lineup. But their second unit isn't great, but they're sort of getting it done. Guys like Brandon Clark and, Tyus Jones sort of plays his role, and Conchar plays well. But, I love this team, man. Like Steven Adams and Morant and Bane and Dylan Brooks, they got a good line. They got a good team. They're going to definitely challenge for the West. Hopefully they could be healthy enough come playoff time and then have enough offense, just like Denver. This is enough to get through your first round without question, maybe second. But do you have enough offense to really get it done when defenses start really picking up on Morant and forcing Bane, Jaren Jackson, and other guys to be playmakers and make play for the team? What do you think about Memphis, Bogues?
Yeah, I like them. I just don't know if I feel like they're a tough team. They're great, but I feel like they get ahead of themselves sometimes. There were the comments that Clay criticized that they were talking about themselves as a dynasty. That's where they concern me. I feel like they haven't done shit yet, theoretically. They've been a great regular season team. They're fun to watch. Ja Morant's a superstar. They've got great role players. They've got a mix of veterans and youth. Love it. But you got to prove that in the playoffs over the course of multiple 7-game series. You got to get out of that tough Western Conference and then then win a championship. We start entertaining the fact that you're a dynasty. So my concern is their mental makeup, just making those silly comments. And you could put that down to being young and dumb and brash and confident, but pump the brakes a little bit. Focus on, we're not there yet. We're a great regular season team. That doesn't mean shit. You go out in straight sets in the first round, you could win 80 games. I was part of a team that won 73 games and we finished second and no one remembers it. Right? You got to win it that year to be in that conversation. So that's where their next step is, to no more, second round's good for Memphis. No, you're talking the talk right now and you're playing great basketball and fun to watch, one of the most exciting teams. It's conference finals or bust, in my opinion. So that's where I think I want to see their next step in the playoffs.
Bogues, they wouldn't be NBA players if they weren't delusional, right? I mean, how many, I think that's
but look, our journey, the Warriors' journey was, I'm biased, obviously, but our journey was just kind of initially, before the KD stuff, before that, the way we built it up, we snuck up on people because we kept that kind of in-house. We had belief in ourselves and we weren't like, we're going to be the best team, this, that. We just kind of slowly snuck up on everyone and then bang, got the championship and then we talked, whereas I think, you just want to be careful you don't get ahead of yourself. But yeah, you're right. There is a bit of delusion there. You want that confidence, but it's a fine line, right? You want to be confident, but you don't want to get it to a point where it actually hurts you.
Right. No, I agree. I do agree with that. They gotta, before you start talking, but how NBA teams are, like players, they gotta, you gotta earn it first. So they gotta beat real teams in the playoffs, and they gotta get places before, they sort of start talking that talk. But it's the NBA. It's just, there's some blasphemy as far as what comes out of players' mouths, when they haven't really accomplished anything and they want to talk like they have. But that's just sort of the league we're in. It's a young person league. They're not the smartest people sometimes when they talk out of line, but what are you going to do? It's a circus with no tent. So, let's just roll with it. You know what I'm saying?
We'll get to those circus comments later as well. We've got some nice comments from Popovich about that.
Oh, yeah?
Weak team of my weak team. This was a tough one. There was a lot of candidates. Charlotte, they've been awful. Indiana had a pretty bad week. Chicago a bad week. The Spurs and Houston, you can give it to them every other week, the way they play. But I'm going to go with Portland. I think that, even though they got a big win against Dallas yesterday and they're playing again right now, they've just had a bad week, probably bad month. 3-7 in their last 10 before today's game. They slipped to 12 in the West, but got back up to 11 with the win against Dallas. So they've fallen out of the playoff mix, and they were in there they were in the meat of that for a while, playing really good basketball. We were impressed with their start to the season. They were first at one point in the West to start the season. And just more their losses. Toronto twice in that realm, Cleveland, Orlando. Orlando's a tough beat, as we know, for how bad they are, but you can't lose to Orlando. You can't lose to Toronto twice. They do have Peyton Jr. back, who brings them a lot more defensive presence, which has been key. He was really, really good against Doncic in their last game 2 nights ago. But a bit of concern that they've fallen off the face of the earth, so they need to get some form back. Lillard's been in and out of the lineup at times, which doesn't help, but it just seems that same old point of the season for Portland. They start off really well generally, or they're around 500, and then they have like a bad 3 or 4 weeks. It seems like that's been the story, probably for the last 2 or 3 seasons, even when Stotts was still there. So a bit of concern there for me.
Yeah, Bogues. I mean, the NBA, it's a daily battle. It's a daily fight. Like every game and every team you play has NBA players on it. It's not like college where you play like, Pacific University that's going to win 4 games a year. Like there's where how you were in college, like your first 4 or 5 games are like tune-ups. They were just easy teams you knew you're going to beat. In the NBA, I don't care how bad the team that you play, you can get beat on any given night because everybody's got NBA players. Every team's got at least one guy that could bust your ass. That's a really good player, and then they've got the rest of their lineups and stuff. And Portland's got to understand, regardless of who's healthy, who's not, you got to come and strap it on every night, and you got to compete because it's the mental game of the NBA. Every night, there's 82 games. Nobody gives a fuck what your record is. Nobody gives a fuck who's on your team. You gotta go for the throat every night, or you're going to get beat. And that's the consistency of being a playoff team. It's really hard. I mean, it's easier now because of the play-in, but it's really hard to be a playoff team, after the first 4 teams, talent-wise, not, you got to grind it out every night and you got to win games. And if you lose 2-3 in a row, then you got to get those wins back. And, then you got injuries you got to deal with, shuffling lineups, all this stuff, and road trips and back-to-backs. It's a tough deal, and Portland's got to figure it out. Look, they've got, obviously, Lillard's their guy. They got Simons and, Jeremy Grant. Nurkic is good. They got, their second unit's okay. They got Gary Payton back. Shaden Sharp is sort of up and down. There's not really that other guy off the bench who could really bust your ass, but, they are struggling for sure. I sort of took a look at them, and, it's, they're sitting there, at 11 right now, tied with Phoenix, 9, I think they're 9 back if I'm not mistaken. But, yeah, Bogues, they got to step it up and they got to earn it. And, it's a tough league, man. It's a tough league. And they haven't even done that at Los Angeles Clippers bullshit where they're sitting everybody for fucking, for load management. They're playing their guys. They just had some injury stuff. So they gotta step it the fuck up. They got to figure it out because, they got these young players and they get Lillard. Like, are you old? Are you young? Are you developing? What are you going to do? I don't know. I didn't really like them much in the beginning of the year, but, right now they're sort of in a tough spot.
Yeah, they shocked both of us coming out of the gate the way they did. Like, we definitely didn't expect them to be as good as they were. And I think they've fallen back to probably where we thought they'd be. So it'll be interesting to see if they can scratch a plane. Who do you have?
Bogues, I got the Clippers, 3-7. Now, the first argument will be, well, these guys didn't play, but if you're a championship level team, which I think everybody sort of points at them as being championship level, you got to step up. We talk about it all the time about, you want to see how much value you got in this league? Well, how about you fucking show it when guys are out and you got to up your role a little bit. And, I guess we could have that conversation, Bogues, about load management. Is it the right thing they're doing, sitting these guys all the time or not? But you still got Marcus Morris, you still got Zubac, you still got, you got John Wall, Reggie Jackson, Norman Powell, you got Batum, you've got NBA players in your team. You still got a decent, it is hard when your top 2 players like that with all your cap is really into and everything's geared towards are out on a regular basis. But you still got to win games. And if you're going to win, in the playoffs, really good teams figure out how to isolate your best player and try to take them out and force everybody else to make plays. Maybe they can't take 2 guys out, but still, if that happens, to win playoff games, that 3rd and 4th guy got to play a really big role to what you're trying to do. And, they got to prove it. But I don't know. Do you want to have the load management talk?
Yeah, look, the load management thing we've discussed to death. That's the Clippers. Paul George is injured, but even when they're healthy, one of them's not playing. That's their formula. That's their formula of success to get to the playoffs and be healthy. I don't like it. We've done it to death. Continuity, playing together. They've got a bunch of stars. They've got, good role players. And then all of a sudden, both PG and Kawhi play. It bumps a Norman Powell or a John Wall, their role gets bumped down 2 or 3 notches. Then you got to, you figure out when do you go and when do you not in that role, right? But when there's only one star next to you, all of a sudden, maybe John Wall was your 2 option that night. Maybe then it's Reggie Jackson. Maybe then it's this guy or that guy, right? So that's my frustration with it. I just don't think it's that easy to just turn on in the playoffs. Like you got to get there first with some continuity, and they just don't have that. And yeah, from the fans' point of view, like if I'm a Clipper fan, I'm frustrated going to those home games. I want to see the best players play, and look within context. Sometimes you got to rest a guy every now and then, but they just blatantly do it. Like and I get it. You want to keep guys. The argument is, do you want them there in game 55 or do you want them in a 7-game series going to the conference finals? Totally get it. You got to get there first for the Clippers. We've seen this story for 3 or 4 years, right? And I don't think it's fair to the fans, and I think the NBA's. It's becoming baseball-like, right? Where your good lineups in one game, and the next game it's kind of your second string, or you're mixing it up that way. That all becomes a separate strategy, and I don't think you want to get to that point. The answer to that, so the solution, I guess, is what do you do? Is it less games? Because as soon as you go to 50, 60 games, you're going to have teams playing guys 40. So I don't know what the answer is. End of the day, you can't prove someone's hurt or sick, so it comes down to trusting teams and all that. And yeah, I'm not a huge fan of it, Pro. I don't know what you think, but if a guy's coming off a rehab, like the first year back for Kawhi, or the first month or 2 after a long rehab session, yeah, okay. But I think the Warriors almost have the balance right. Like Steph's back now, and I believe they're playing a back-to-back, and to all reports he's cleared for unlimited minutes in both the back-to-backs, right? So instead of saying, we're going to do the next month or 2 and ease him back in. So every team's different. Look, the Clippers win at the end of the season. They're geniuses, we're idiots, right? But I just don't see it. I've seen this story before.
Yeah, Bogues, it's the world we live in, right? If they do what they're doing now and they win it, they're geniuses and everybody's going to do it. If they do what they do and they lose, people are going to lose their jobs, first of all. And second of all, they're going to get ridiculed. If they start playing guys and they so God forbid somebody gets hurt, they're going to say, why didn't you rest him? You can never win in this fucking battle. You know that. But I do think it does impact your team. I'm all for having guys step up their roles for a certain amount of time, even if you gotta bring them back to reality when these guys come back. But I think to the level in which they're doing it, I do question that. I think, you just keep on, Kawhi plays 2 games and then he's out 6 and then up, I think that's sort of, I'm no doctor obviously, but I think that's a little fucked up. You could do a better job with that, but it's all, hey, look, like we all always say, if they win the championship, no one's going to give a shit. If you win if you don't win a championship, they're going to lambaste you, and then every little thing is going to get to the chopping block. So it's a sort of the world of sports and the world we live in general that people are just going to fucking just take shots at you, and they're just going to wait for shit to happen.
Oh my God, my team of the week, Pro. My team of the week. Denver Nuggets have hung on the strangest thing I've seen. I was watching this in the background as you were talking.
Are you sure about that?
Oh, yeah, it's 119-116 with 0.2 left. So Orlando could hoist a 3 up with 0.2 left to tie it. But Denver they're up 1 with 16 seconds left. Orlando ball. Fultz is bringing it up. They foul him on purpose. Murray does. Now, I don't know if Murray thought they had a foul to give, but they foul him on purpose. He walks the length of the floor with the clock stopped with however long left. Goes 1 for 2, so it's a tied game. Broken down play. Murray throws it to Jokic. He's to step back 3 from the top of the key to put him up 3. So my team of the week's going to hang on. I've got a good feeling, Pro. And I'm going to ask you this, Pro. 0.2 seconds left. Do you foul here? If you do you try to foul? Obviously, with 0.2, it's a bit harder. Let's say hypothetically there was 5 seconds left. Would you foul on purpose and put him to the line if you're up 3?
Bogues, to me, it depends on personnel. If it's Luke, now people say, look, you got to foul.
Well, that's the example. The Laker game with Doncic. Yeah. They're up. Lakers are up 3 with, 8 seconds left? It's 5 seconds left?
Yeah.
Slide out of bounds. Doncic catches it, hits a 3, they go to overtime, and they lose that game. If you foul Doncic on the spot, put him to the line for 2 free throws, you're still up 1 with the ball, best case scenario, right?
Yeah, here's my thing with that. If it's 95% of the personnel in the NBA, I'm saying don't foul. Just play it out. If it's Luka, Booker, Durant, Tatum, if I'm facing a guy like that, I'm fouling. If it's anybody else, like most other teams, I'm like, all right, play it out. Because it's going to be tough. Switch everything. It's going to be tough. I know the analytics does tell you foul, right? I've actually, in the D League, it's funny, we had like 3 straight of those situations where we foul, and we lost all 3 games because we shit fucked away free throws and all that. But I'm a fan of just playing it out. Don't foul, defend without fouling, switch everything, and just play it out and forcing them to make a shot. Except if you're playing Luka fucking Doncic. Like, Luka could be down 90 with 2.5 minutes left. I'm still fucking holding my breath because that guy could get you back. There aren't many guys that can do that. Like, he's one of them. Steph Curry's another one. Durant. There aren't many guys that could just will their way into tough situations and will your team back and make ridiculous shots with pressure situations. I think Luka, Curry, and Durant are 1, 2, and 3 in the league to me of guys who can do that on a regular basis. And in that situation with Doncic, I would have fouled. I would never let him have a chance at it. Like I would foul him like while he's still in the huddle and their fucking team in the timeout. I'd foul him then.
Yeah,
because
that was a perfect case study for fouling because it was 6 or 7. You don't want to do it with 20 seconds left. You don't want to do it with. You kind of don't want to do it with a couple of seconds left because most times guys are turning to shoot. So then you got the risk of them shooting 3 free throws for those listening. But Doncic caught it at the sideline, had to spin, take 2 dribbles and hit a 3 or 3 dribbles. As soon as he takes that first one, you try to steal it, or as soon as he catches it, they're shooting 2 free throws with 5, 6 seconds left. He makes both. They get a foul, you a couple of seconds goes off the clock, and then you're playing the timeout game. I'd always kind of, I would more, it's timing. If it's around the 5 or 6 second mark and you can take a clear foul without them getting 3 free throws, I would almost always do it, even if there wasn't a Doncic out there. Around that has to be within that time range. Otherwise, you play it out. But you've seen too many times. And look, you got to factor in, is my star in foul trouble? Can we afford to go overtime? What are my guys' legs like? Is their guys cramping? Do I have injuries? If your star's at 5 fouls, you don't want to go to overtime. So you want to try to risk, all right, let's make them make a really tough play to get to overtime. So it is philosophical between different coaches, but I'm more of a pro. Within 10 and under, I generally always foul and put them to the line and then trust my team from the free throw line and trust that they might miss one too.
Any coach, Bogues, that sort of introduced you into that philosophy of fouling versus non-fouling? Did you have different coaches that had different philosophies that you played under in your career? Or is it just something that you just said, yeah, fuck that, I'm fouling or I'm not fouling? Like, is it just
I've seen the opposite end of it. I've seen the 3-point, being the big fella, I'm usually wrestling someone for a rebound as the shot goes up, and I've been stuck under the basket way too many times and seeing the ball go through. Kobe hit one on us in Milwaukee, should have fouled him as he dribbled it up. I think Dirk hit one against us in Milwaukee when I was there. So I just think that some coaches say, no, play it out, I've got faith in my defense, but not only that, you could jump and a ref could call a foul. There's a lot that can go wrong. So I'd almost be like, you know what, especially if they've got one or less timeouts left, you only have to go down and knock 2 free throws down once, come and do it again, and then you're pretty much set, right? So no specific coach. I think more coaches are probably, I don't know what the ratio would be. I think more coaches are against it than for it. You don't see a lot of coaches do it. In EuroLeague, internationally, a lot of, like, it's more for it. I think it's 70-80, 20-30 in that category. They all foul and won't let you get the 3-point shot up. And the other thing is, in EuroLeague, you can't call a timeout on a live ball. So sometimes teams will miss that second free throw on purpose, knowing that you can't go the length of the floor. So there's a lot of disparities, but I'm a fan of it. I'll rather take my chances there because there's so many talented players that can hit threes. And we just saw it then with Jokic. Even though it was a tie game, he hits a step back 3. So a tough one on the buzzer, right? So it's tough. It's everyone's got a different opinion on it. I'm more towards fouling, but only within, like I said, it has to be perfect timing and everything has to align. But it's one of those things I've seen. We've both seen the flip side where teams say, all right, we're fouling, and then a player fouls on a live ball, the guy's turning to shoot, and then they call 3 free throws, right? So then you're like, okay, shit, like we shouldn't have fouled. You shouldn't have fouled. So only in the perfect context, away from the basket where they can't trick the official, do it. Otherwise, I think you play it out.
Yeah, Bogues, it's an interesting philosophy either way, But I think I think when I think also teams got to do a better job across the league in practicing it too. They foul late, they foul on the shot when they shouldn't. I think it's something that you really got to practice every day. And at almost every practice, just sort of drill it and drill it and drill it, because you see teams screwing it up at the last possible minute, and they should know when you're fouling and what situations and how to foul. And I don't think it's really worked on enough, to be honest, those special situations. The 97 ATOs are definitely practiced every day. The 8 new plays they want to put in to make them look like geniuses. But those little things are not worked on enough.
Yeah, that was why Scott Skiles was really good when I played for him. We spent probably the last 5 or 10 minutes of every practice doing 1 second and under stuff. Random shit like, hey, we've got the side out of bounds with 0.7. They've got the ball with 2.1, and how where we send the ball, how we foul, and we won a game with it. We had a play, I've mentioned this before, probably on the podcast, where we had a 1 second and under sideline play, and it was basically a lob for me where we emptied out a side and I slipped a screen, and we won a game with it, 0.7. I think we're down 1, and we got a tip in on the far side of the basket from the sideline, perfect pass from Marbute. It's on YouTube for those that are interested, and just that was a play that was done at the end of practice, not really at live speed. He just said, hey, give me your mentals now. We're not going live. We're done. This is the last thing. Let's walk through this a few times. Hey, we even did things like where the 4 and the 5 would screen for each other, and we would yell switch as the offense to try and trick the defense into switching, because they might think it's a teammate calling it, to confuse them a little bit, and ended up winning us 1 game. And if it wins you 1 game, that's a difference sometimes between the 8 seed and the 9 seed, or a division championship. So he did a really good job with that. And that's where, for you coaches out there, a lot of times you got athletes that want to go at it at a training, and let them go at it, and they save the last 5 minutes for like a walkthrough to cap it off, as you're almost done with practice, and have a quick talk. If you turn those into 20, 30-minute segments, you're going to lose guys very, very quickly. But 5 minutes at the end of every practice for random one-off plays builds up over the course of a season, and that 5 minutes turns into a couple of hours worth on just small, silly little things that can win your game. So big pro on that, no pun intended there. But moving on to some news. Congratulations to the San Antonio Spurs, by the way, pro. The Alamodome, they had a game there versus the Warriors. They have broken the NBA all-time record crowd. I think it was Atlanta, wasn't it, the last one? 68,323. Now, I saw some of the photos or the viewing vantage points from that arena. That was not a whole lot you would have saw if you're up the top, but obviously a football stadium, that's a pretty big turnout, man, in a small market of all things in San Antonio. 68,000 people in a basketball game.
Bogues, it wasn't Golden State, right? It was Atlanta.
It was.
Okay, it was Atlanta. Bogues, did you ever play?
Oh, they had the record. You mean they had the record?
No, I didn't know if they were playing Golden State. I didn't see.
They played Golden State.
Yeah,
played Golden State. Yeah. They played Golden State.
Bogues, have you ever played in a stadium versus an arena? Have you ever played in one of those?
Yeah, we played Team USA here in Melbourne, in the football stadium. They converted that to a basketball stadium, and it was interesting. It was because the court was kind of lifted off the ground a little bit. There was floor seats on where the grass would have been, and then people on the outers were the rest of the crowd. So it was interesting. It was it was windy in there a little bit, just because it's a football stadium. Even though it had a roof on it, there's still drafts coming under through the car park and the basements and all that. But it was really cool, really, really cool. I was a huge fan of it. I'm just seeing that many people crammed in for a basketball game. I think 30 or 40,000 people, whatever they got, but it was unbelievable. So I was a fan of it. Look, it's not something you can do a lot. It's a good one-off. By the way, the Perth Wildcats had an open roof game last weekend. Melbourne does that a little bit as well at the tennis centre. They opened the roof. Well, the Perth one was good, but the problem is it's summer there. It's glaring hot. There were a few people that were like, we got severely sunburnt. And there were also a few people that were in the upper that for about half of the game couldn't really see the court because of the sun and glare. So then once the sun kind of chilled out, they said it was sensational when it cleared up, but for the most part it wasn't. It's not something you want to do on a weekly basis for your product, but as a one-off gimmick thing, that it's commendable that they do that. And it looks really cool. Like if you're the guy taking the drone photos, or you're a plane flying over the top, sensational. If you're there to watch the game as a purist, probably not the best viewing pleasure you're going to get, but you expect that, knowing that glare sun and all that kind of stuff. But they're trying some strange things. The US, the college game that's always on the what is it, the Navy ship or
on an aircraft carrier.
So tried some unique things. But congratulations to the Spurs. Anyway, it's a great 68,000 people's nothing to sneeze at. So good on them. Popovich, some great comments. He was just basically talking about the state of the game and where things are going. And I think he's grown a little bit frustrated with the way the game's officiated now to protect the offense at all costs, where it's all threes. You're living by the three or you're dying by it. He basically had a pretty funny comment that said, I said before, I'm just hoping the league ends up with a 4-pointer or a 5-pointer so we can make this a real circus. Then it wouldn't be basketball. It would be just a bunch of crap, bro. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I think he's definitely gets some merit with that. I'm not a big fan of his political speech and talking down to everybody like that, but I do agree with some of the things that he says on a basketball for sure. I think it is right. The game attempts to be a circus where it's just jacking up shots, not caring about possessions, not caring about turnovers, and just wanting to jack up. Like you see a guy, coming down on a break when they could just break away for a layup and they pull up for three. I mean, there's some really bonehead ways to really play the game these days. And all they'll tell you is, well, three's worth more than two. You can't have that every fucking answer. Three is worth more than two. You gotta have some sort of brains in the game where like mid-range shots and 2-point shots are okay at times when you could sort of get it on drives and you can get an uncontested or marginally contested two, versus like taking a contested fucked up three or 28-foot three because some jerk off in a fucking MIT costume in your analytics department says three is worth more than two. I get that. I get the importance of taking about 35 threes a game or so. But like, if you're just going to be doing that, I think the biggest problem in the game, Bogues, is there's no originality to it anymore. Very few teams like play different styles. Everybody's got to be the same. Like no bigs anymore. Everybody's got to be able to switch. You don't throw the play through the post. Everything's got to be a three. They're abandoning the mid-range shot for the most part, unless you're a superstar. Like those things make the games a little circus. Like that's the good thing about the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s. You had different coaches, different teams that played sort of different styles, and some played up tempo, some played a little slower, some played through the post, some didn't. But I do like the originality. I think every young coach says the same bullshit: space, pace, downhill, and they don't really teach. I think everything's done as like it's like something out of the Twilight Zone. It's just everybody talks the same, coaches the same, plays the same. And I think that the game definitely lacks some originality that makes the game so beautiful. You know what I'm saying? But that's just me. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I think it's spot on. I think it is becoming. We hit this a little bit last week, and it might sound like two old guys crying over spilled milk, but the game has changed, and it's just it's one of those things that's noticeable to basketball purists, and Pop's arguably one of those. So I think it's just become a little bit of a circus with all the baiting the officials. The officials are obviously siding. I think it's 90-10 towards the offensive player these days. You can't get in a stance and be physical and get into guys these days, because it's going to be a foul. It's very push towards high scoring. So, and then analytics and data and AI and all that kind of stuff's coming into basketball now as heavy as it's ever been. I just wondered, it's a pendulum theory, whether this swings back. I don't think it's going to, because it employs a shitload of people. The first and foremost, it is, branched out NBA offices to, when you first got involved, how many people were in an NBA front office? Including like I'm talking how many suits when you got involved, how many suits were there in an NBA franchise? Let's talk 90s,
we were one of the lowest in the league anyway in Boston. So it was literally like Chris Wallace was the GM. This is before Danny Ainge got there. It was Chris Wallace. We had a guy named Leo Papil who got me in. It was me, Ryan McDonough. We're breaking down films and sort of low-level scouts. Ryan ended up being the GM of Phoenix. And that was about it. There was maybe one more. We literally had 5 in our whole department, where the Knicks had like 30. And now I think it's a contest between how many scouts and front office people or how many assistant coaches behind the bench on an NBA coaching staff. Because now every every staff, it seemed like in the front office is like minimum of 18 to 20 people, from scouts to personnel directors to GMs to presidents to.
Oh, it's more than that, bro. You're the unders there. Like you got behind the bench is one thing, then you've got analytics assistant, video analytics spreadsheet. This guy takes care of this guy takes care of that. This guy's running the actual in-arena cameras to make sure we've got all the analytics. Like there's a lot of people employed with this, so there's an incentive to keep that going. But yeah, my point is front offices, I think from the 90s, 2000s, even to when I got involved with the Bucks, it wasn't a huge front office to where it is now. I would say comfortably, it's between 5 to 10x of where it was in suits. That's including your whole array of scouts, even strength conditioning teams. You look at we had a head trainer, an assistant, and maybe an intern. Now you've got a weight room probably with 8 people in it now. 2 or 3, 4 of them are staff, and then a bunch of interns. Same as your interns that you had rebounding. There was 1 or 2 of them back in the day. You can get up to 10 or 15 of them now on rotation. So. It employs a lot of people, which is a good thing, but it is too much. There's too many people in there, and then people wonder how does stuff get leaked from an organization? Well, there's so many people in and out of there on a daily basis, especially in a team like Golden State, that you don't know who's coming and going sometimes. So it is interesting. I think Pop, definitely agree with his take on it, and I just don't think much is going to change in the immediate future. All right, Enes Kanter, pro, he's this isn't really a laughing matter because it is quite serious, but Turkey's put a $500K bounty on his head. That's not for a 10-day or a basketball contract, bro. That's for his life, which is just crazy. I mean, you look at the countries we both live in, deemed free than the Western world and freer and democracy and all that. Even though at times over the last couple of years that was questionable, but you look at what they've just come out and said on a record from basically their president's mouth, or their politician's mouth, that 500K bounty, pro. So I'm interested to see. He's doubled down on it since and still continuing to comment on it all. And you hope no harm comes to him. I hope no one tries something stupid. But you never know, some crazy nutters out there. But this is pretty crazy stuff, bro.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there are people that sort of speak their mind, and Enes has definitely been one of those guys who spoke his mind about things. I tend to not be confrontational about things like this, especially government, especially religion, things like that, where people are fanatical about. And especially in those types of countries, it's one thing in the United States where you can get into a little bit of a Twitter war. You might even get into a fight with a person, but I think in very rare circumstances, people put bounties on your head. And that's just the one thing. That's the one thing about just speaking your mind about those types of things all the time, that you could put yourself in harm's way. I mean, you never want to see that from anyone, especially somebody who's just sort of speaking their mind. It doesn't matter if he's right or wrong. He's just speaking his mind, and you should have the freedom to be able to do that. He does go hard at people, and I haven't really kept up with everything that he says, but it's interesting because, I was one of the first people to see Enes. So Enes, Tim Grover, when I was working for in Chicago, Brand Jordan had all these clinics across the country, across the world, especially in Europe, China. I think it's just Europe, actually, different European countries. And he came back and he goes, Mike, there's this guy who's like Carlos Boozer that I saw Grover did. It's Enes Kanter. There was an agent named Max Ergel that was in our gym that represented some Turkish kids. And he had this kid. And he comes off the plane and he shows up to play. Couldn't speak a word of English, just came to play. This agent sort of took him out, extracted him from Turkey, where other agents wanted to rep him, extracted him, had him live with him, and tried to get him to a prep school in the United States. And here he is, came off playing against NBA guys, busting their ass. He ended up working out with us every summer, pre-draft. Never really was into the whole politics stuff. Talked a little bit. I met his dad. His dad was a doctor. Had dinner with him in New York, a late night one night when Enes was playing in the Brand Jordan game, and got a chance to meet him. And then there was some issues later on when he started getting in the NBA, started talking about stuff. And then his dad, they imprisoned the dad, and and then they tried to confine him in an airport or something like that, Ennis, and but then he started to keep on speaking out, like, I don't know, puts himself in harm's way in the crosshairs in this thing. Hopefully there's some, this isn't Curb Your Enthusiasm with the Fatwire episode. This is some real shit. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I don't know if he has a family or young kids. I don't think he does.
I don't think he does.
That would definitely, thankfully, that would definitely change things. When you have kids and stuff, that it's a whole different realm. But yeah, he's going to have security traveling with him, I assume, for the rest of his life, judging upon that, unless something else happens. But the thing with these countries is you see a lot of these people in politics in some of these nations, they, even when they leave, they can still be ramifications once they're gone from office too. So I don't think that's an easy fix, but pretty crazy. And all the people putting out memes about the 500K bounty, that NSC's overpaid again and all that kind of stuff. We see you out there, memesters. But be a bit cautious. It's on the man's life. So have a little bit of a giggle, but don't take it too far. So that was interesting. And you've got a problem with the dress code, Pro, that you wanted to address for our listeners, the NBA dress code.
Bogues, like, I keep watching these games, and it just keeps on getting more and more, like, it's unbelievable. It's something out of a fucking Zoolander movie. Like, the stuff that's being worn on the bench, hoodies with, like, guys with like hoodies and sunglasses on, outlandish outfits. Like, I understand, like, you want to be comfortable, and I was never a big fan of wearing the suits on the bench, like players if they're not out. Like, I think that we all get gear, right? When we're with NBA teams, they give you about literally $3,000 worth of gear, like 5 sweatsuits, like 20 t-shirts, socks, da 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 da. Like, why not issue it where they have to wear team issued stuff? There's plenty of stuff to wear. Like, you're not confining them to anything. And if they want to wear outlandish stuff to like the arena, fine. But like on the bench, like, look like you're engaged a little bit. When you get like guys with hats on backwards and sunglasses and like hoodies on, I could see if you're in the game and you want to keep your head warm and you put a hoodie on. I get that, even though I'm not a huge fan of it, but I get it. But there's like no respect for the dress code anymore. And you should be able to wear some team issues stuff. I mean, you got plenty of things, but like everybody's just different. I know, quote unquote, they want to express themselves and all this bullshit, but like, I think you should just wear some team issued stuff. I mean, what are your thoughts? I mean, you're a player.
Well, coaches can now wear team issued sweats, I believe, to coach, which is, I think that's fair enough if you want to do that. Some coaches still like to dress up and make it professional. Look, I came in the league the first year of the hardcore dress code by David Stern. So he went from like, we're not wearing jerseys and wife beaters to the arena anymore. It's going to be business casual. And their business casual definition was harder than most businesses. Like, it was, you couldn't really wear jeans and a kind of a fitted top. They didn't even allow that. They were that hardcore. It had to be a collared shirt and blah, blah, blah. So that was too extreme in my opinion. I thought, shit, this is crazy. Like, you basically wear a suit and dress shoes and pack a whole nother bag. So I didn't like that, and I think that was David Stern's extreme. I think Adam Silver's on the opposite. Adam Silver, literally, you could wear, whatever you want. You come in army fatigues with your face painted, with a sombrero and a poncho if you wanted to, right? Like, it's just gotten out of control. Coming into the arena, I get it. Some guys are fashionistas. They like to walk on runways. That's their runway. They might get paid to promote a certain brand. I know Westbrook has his own clothing line. Get all that. I agree with you, though. On the bench, it's a team game. Some of the stuff guys are wearing on the bench is just like, I've seen guys do full interviews in hoodies. And I get it's a cultural thing. I get it's an NBA thing. But I'm not a huge fan of that. I think you should try to at least be somewhat one with the team. And I think sweats, as long as you say, all right, just team issued sweats. And there's, like you said, you get 7 or 8 different color combinations of sweats they give you. So take your pick. But I know with like the national team and all that, we try to, if you're on the bench, you're expected to at least wear the team polo and jeans or team polo and sweats, right? Like, so we want to be uniform. The other reason why we do that overseas is in case, from like junior level, in case one of us gets lost, you know what you look like, right? If you're walking amongst 15, 20, 30 other teams, that's the reason they do it internationally, is you see your colors and you can find your team, especially at a young age. But yeah, I like the uniformity of it. I think it's just gotten out of control with some of the stuff that's being worn, and it's almost one up. Like, I'm gonna wear something way more extreme than that guy next game. Oh, cameras are gonna be on me, and it's like I get all that. but I think the NBA needs to wind it back. Don't go David Stern levels. Adam Silver, where it's like, yeah, you guys run the show. Don't like that neither. I think in the middle, just have a bit of professionalism where, you know, people are coming to watch professional basketball players, and I think that's definitely something that they should do.
I remember when I was with the Celtics, and again, it was really loose, guys wearing baggy jeans and stuff, you know, jerseys on the bench when they weren't playing. We had this guy named Joe Forte that we drafted, in the Tony Parker draft. We drafted this idiot, and he, North Carolina, one of the best players in the ACC, and we were playing the Sixers in the playoffs, and this fucking guy wasn't active. That was when you had to activate only a certain amount of players, and he was inactive, so he had to wear dress clothes. This fucker, we were playing the Sixers in the playoffs. This fucking guy wore a Dr. J jersey on the bench, with the shirt underneath, but had a Dr. J Sixers jerseys as we're playing the fucking Sixers in the playoffs. I mean, again, I think I understand being too harsh on players. It's a players' league, so you got to keep them happy to a certain extent. But you also got to look professional. You got to be professional. I think the most professional guy I've ever been around with that stuff might have been Harrison Barnes. Harrison, it didn't matter. I hate dressing up anyway, especially on the flights. And this fucker had this fucking guy had one of those European cut suits,
three-piece, four-piece
suit. Yeah, on the plane. I mean, this guy was dressed to the nines. He was Dr. Professionalism. And I apologize for calling him a fucker because he is a good friend of mine. But which I probably should call him a fucker anyway. Anybody who's a close friend of mine, I'd probably call him that. But that I couldn't believe because he was professional 24/7 with that stuff. But I wouldn't go that extreme with players. I don't think you should be able to do that. I think you should be comfortable. And I think just wearing team sweats is a big thing. But now it's just letting them do anything they want. I get it's a players' league and you got to make them happy, but you got to meet in the middle with it. I think team issued sweats is fine. They wear them all the time. They wear them, they wear them to the practice facility. They wear them in doing whatever. They've got a million types of cuts that they could have. I think that's an easy rule that they should do just because it's getting a little outlandish and embarrassing. And, you got to have some professionalism with it, sort of meet in the middle, make the players comfortable, look a little professional. I think there's some ways we can do that. And I think just wearing team issue sweats would be good.
Totally agree. All right, Aussie watch. Real quick, Josh Green's still out hurt. Hasn't made a comeback yet. Jack White, 5 points, 2 rebounds in a blowout win versus Phoenix. His first minutes back from reasonable minutes since he came back from the G League. Joe Ingles slowly playing into form pro. He had a good week, 9.6 points, 2.6 rebounds, 4.6 assists off the bench with 7 for 18 from 3. He's slowly closing into his steady numbers of old that he's consistently put up in Utah. Slowly finding his legs and feeling a little bit better. Milwaukee's still a little bit up and down. A few injuries there. Giannis in and out with the knee issue. Matisse still in the rotation. 10 to 15 minutes a game, but not very productive on the stat sheet. 2 points a night with 1.6 rebounds and 1 steal in the last week. Dyson Daniels had a very good week. 6 points, 5 rebounds, 2.6 assists per game. Jock Landale, 6.6 points, 4.6 rebounds, and 2 assists per game. They're all banged up. They're in all sorts. Phoenix, one of the contenders for team of the week, as in bad team of the week. But we didn't give it to them. But they're struggling. Delhi's found some garbage minutes the last couple of weeks, which has been good. 2.6 points and 1 assist over the last week. Ben Simmons with a very weird line. He only played 1 game over the last week. He had 0 points, 13 assists, and 9 rebounds with 2 steals. So that was an interesting line. Didn't score the ball. Paddy, first minutes since January 2nd in a loss to OKC. He had 6 points and a rebound. So cracked the rotation a little bit there, but still pretty much out of the rotation when they are healthy. Katie obviously out hurt there. And our now 5th-time winner of Australian Player of the Week. He's pretty much got it sewn up. Josh Giddey, I think, has had the best week of his career, pro, statistically. He has, I think, both for scoring and his overall line. this is what he was over this week. 22.5 points, 9.5 rebounds, 8.25 assists per game, Pro, if you don't mind. A phenomenal week for Josh Giddey. Continues to get better. I'm really excited about his growth. And as I said, 5-time Rogue Bogues Australian Player of the Week. So any of those stand out for you besides Josh, Pro?
No, I mean, the Giddey thing, obviously, he's playing his ass off. I think in some ways, he could be the most valuable player on that team, even though, SGA's so good, dominating stat-wise. But that, with his passing and an ability to just make the thing easy for everybody with his size and sort of vision and basketball IQ, he's a special player. And so, no, I mean, Wandale, obviously Wandale, I keep an eye on, and, he did well. He's sort of that situation's a shit show as it is. So, it's hard to get consistent minutes doing anything there. But the Giddey, obviously the Giddey stats were great. No, I didn't even see Patty played. I didn't even notice. I haven't watched Brooklyn in a while. So, it's cool to get, to see him get some minutes. Thibault's actually playing better, like you said. It's funny, like he's made some corner threes and spot up threes. He's getting better. I think that they just got to find consistent minutes. And I think that's the hardest part in the NBA to do, is just to find those consistent minutes when you haven't really made it yet. And I think that he's definitely showing the ability to to make a shot once in a while. It's getting better. It's not anywhere near where it should be to be a consistent NBA player, like shooting the ball. But, I think he's in the low 30s right now shooting it. So I think that's definitely I think that's definitely some progress there. So it's good. It's good to see him. Hopefully they could just keep playing him 12, 15 minutes and then, sort of just keep him at that 14, 15 minute mark. That would be pretty cool.
Yeah, he's definitely certified in the rotation now, which is good. At the start of the season, he was, getting random 3-4 minute nights. So he's solidified. I think he'll be valuable come a playoff series, especially if they come up against they need some help against Giannis, or they need a bit more length out there. So potentially New York, you could get a stint on Brunson or Randall at times. You can guard 1 through 5. So, that's all good with the Aussie Watch. NBL Australia. Just as I said, the top 3 looks set, or the top 2 at least. New Zealand has plummeted. They've had a bad weekend. They've lost a few games on the trot. They've fallen down to 3rd. They're 13-9, only 1 game above Tasmania in 4th now, 13-10. Cairns keep rolling. So Cairns and the Sydney Kings both on 6-game win streaks as we speak. Cairns are just doing a phenomenal job. They're they continue to win games. Keanu Pinda, their MVP candidate's been out the last probably 2 or 3 weeks, and they're still winning games. So they must be commended with the way they've played, and they're probably another couple of wins off from solidifying the second spot, if not the first spot, depending on how Sydney goes. And those first 2 spots, Pro, are important because you go straight through 3 to 6 going to a play-in. So if you're first or second, you're straight to the top 4 of the final series in the semifinals, and then 3 to 6 play it off to get in there. So everything else has kind of remained the same. New Zealand in 3rd, Tassie in 4. Perth have surged a little bit and got to 5th. Southeast Melbourne have fallen to 6th. Melbourne are surging as well. They're 13-12. If they win out, they have a chance. Adelaide, very disappointing season for them so far. Still in the mix, but probably one or 2 more losses away from not making it with what is probably arguably one of the highest spending rosters in the league and one of the most talented on paper. Ian Clark, of course, joining them a couple of weeks ago. But look, I do want to discuss the Brisbane Bullets, Pro. I don't like kicking teams when I'm down, when they're down, and they're down. I went to the game in Brisbane actually last weekend. I'm in Melbourne now, but I went to the game in Brisbane. I was in Queensland, so I went up to that game and watched the Sydney Kings play. And I must say, they're bad, Pro. Their record is 5-17, and that's inexcusable. We'll get into that a little bit later. But their fans, man, they're awesome. They fit a capacity of 5,000, but they keep turning up. The Brisbane Bullets are putting up horrendous product on the court. Whether you like it or not, it's the honest truth. They lost to the Sydney Kings by 49 points. At that game I was at, franchise record, NBL record, I believe. And just not looking good. But the fans show up. They keep coming. Great environment. It's a nice little arena there they have in Nissan Arena. I actually took my wife and kids up there, and we thanked the Brisbane Bullets for their hospitality and looking after us. And my wife even said, I went to the locker room after the game, so my wife went to the car with the kids, and she said, like, people were leaving the game smiling. Their team lost by 49. They just love basketball. They were like, this is, so it was kind of interesting to see. So, I mean, a team with Tyler Johnson, Nathan Sobey, and Aaron Baines has no excuse being 5-17. Now, the ownership thing is, there's a debacle there. The ownership's not based in Australia. He's not around much. There was an issue with the GM taking over as coach, then going back to the GM spot, then the CEO. The CEO is probably the point of contact for the owner. Like, it's just a bit of a shambles there. It's not going well. But some needs to be put on Aaron Baines and Nathan Sobey and Tyler Johnson. They're three big names in the NBL. Aaron Baines, the highest paid player, he needs to lead that team better and get them some more wins. But their season's all well and truly over, and it's just, I don't know what the fix is, what the solution is. I think the ownership group definitely needs to be held to account. I believe the ownership group is a gentleman over in the US named Jason Levy, and I don't know him too much. They're trying to make some changes. They've hired some more advisors. I think the NBL still might have a stake in that club. I'm not sure. I believe they do. But my question is, how long are the fans going to keep coming with this product? They're loving it right now, and they're 5-17 and not putting up effort. But they continue to come. So I'll give a shout out to Brisbane Bullet fans. You guys are awesome, continuing to support your team through everything they're going through, and probably, are they deserved of that support to this extent right now at this point of the season with the product they're lopping up? That's for people to argue. I would say it's definitely going downhill. It's definitely gone towards no, because you got to at least put some effort, and that's just disappointing to see. And that's where I credit the Illawarra Hawks. The Illawarra Hawks are below them pro at 2-21. Horror season. Injuries, like the black cat type thing, walking under ladders. They've had like injury after injury to main starters, imports. But they're 2-21. But if you watch them play, bar maybe one or two nights this season, they don't look like a team that's 2-21. They still battle. Their coach hasn't playing hard. They probably should have been in the mix to beat the Sydney Kings yesterday. We snuck away with a 5-point win. We were up 13 or 14 with 5 minutes left. They came roaring back and took the lead by 1 with a minute left. And they play hard. That's an example of a team that's not performing well, not record-wise, but they're still giving effort and they're still playing for each other. Brisbane, on the other hand, is the complete opposite. They should be, held to account for their effort. I don't care if the coach isn't qualified, who they have now, or all these distractions with our GM and our ownership and all that kind of stuff. They got to get it together, and it's just disappointing. So, just a shout out to Illawarra that with their horror season, I commend them for putting up that effort. And I think when you suck in pro sports, it's the hardest thing to get up and go to work. When you're 5-17 like the Bullets, or 2-21, you're basically playing spoiler. That's all you can get. But these guys are playing for contracts. They're playing for next season too. They're playing for, I think the Bullets only have 2 contracted players next season, so they got a lot to evaluate. I think that's Baines and Sobey. The rest are free agents, so they got a lot to get through as well. But Brisbane, lift your game. Your players should be held just as accountable. I know the distractions with ownership isn't great, but that's that. And then Perth, obviously looking better. They signed Corey Webster's brother, Ty Webster, who came from he was playing overseas in Europe. They've got a really stacked starting lineup now, and they're looking much better. They've got a big homestand coming pro. So that is the NBL wrap at the moment. We've got a little over a couple of weeks left till a FIBA break and the final start.
Bogues, going back to like the teams that you mentioned that weren't doing very well, like your experience in the NBL, when teams are that bad, is it because they're low budget and they don't spend the money? Is it because they pick the wrong players? Combination of players, coach. Is there a common theme, or is it just sort of different circumstances for different teams?
It's cyclical. Look, I mean, every team's going to have, Sydney's eventually going to have a year that doesn't go to plan, right? Whether it's next season or 10 seasons, we're going to have that. The challenge is just like the NBA is, make sure that season doesn't turn into 5 or 10, right? You're going to have a down year, cool, rebuild, restructure, learn from your mistakes. I think, Illawarra's, it's no secret they're a lower budget team. They're always budget strong. They play in a smaller market. Brisbane was supposed to be a low budget team coming into this season. And I know this because, we have our former assistant coach was there as the head coach, and then he got fired. And then all of a sudden, we're low budget, we don't have a lot of money, but then all of a sudden, Tyler Johnson and Aaron Baines were signed. Big money, right? So they found money from somewhere. So they've spent to try and win, and it hasn't worked. And it's in this league, as Adelaide see now, to just go out and buy the best imports from the season before and put them on a roster, it doesn't work. You have to have some sort of continuity, some culture, some togetherness, sprinkle in some talent, and it still might not go perfectly. And I think for me, and I'm kind of, might be harsh to Brisbane, I think your owner needs to be on the ground. That's my opinion. You need to be in the country at least, at a minimum. I'm not a majority owner in Sydney. I'm a minority owner, but our majority owner is on the ground in Sydney. I fly to Sydney probably monthly. Luke Longley flies to Sydney monthly as part of the ownership group now. The Denholms are living in Sydney permanently. You got to be there because shit hits the fan. It's a long flight from the US and you can only do so much via Zoom. You need to be there to see it with your own eyes. So I think the issue that Brisbane might have is you're getting reports from a coach, from a GM, from a CEO, and as an owner overseas, you're kind of like, okay, this guy said this, then this guy said this. Which one's true? How do I know? I want to be there and see it. And I think the recipe for success is your ownership. You got to be there. You got to rock up to training randomly. You rock up to a training session randomly. Don't tell anyone. You just show up. As an owner, surprise. That's when you see what's really going on. Guy showing up on time. Is everything professional? Are our trainers here early? Are the bottles filled? Is the weight room clean? Are the guys ready to go? Blah, 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 right? And I think that's what probably Brisbane's missing. You need that owner on the ground more than he currently is. And look, by all reports, he's the owner of DC United, the soccer club over there in the US in the MLS. He's also owner of Swansea City, which is, I don't know what division they're in, first or second division in England. So he's got a lot going on. He's obviously, heavily incentivized to own some teams around the world, which is great. You want that. But I think he's definitely going to have to spend more time here to make sure he knows he's getting what he pays for. So I think that's the be-all and end-all, in my opinion, bro.
Okay. Yeah, no, I'm always interested, Bogues, in seeing some teams and why they do what they do. Now, I know in Europe, there's some really low-budget teams that don't have the money, and they really end up they just don't bring in talent. Some teams in Europe, they just don't even bring in foreign players. They just bring in, they pay their local people very low money and they're just okay with it. And maybe they'll sell off some of their young players here and there or what have you. I don't have a lot of experience in Australia, and I just thought, I've heard stories I've worked with Australian coaches before that worked in that league. And they tell me hey, some teams just don't like to spend money, especially the lower end teams. And sometimes they just they don't take the right guys, and just because they want to hold out with money, and it just ends up being a situation. So it's just interesting to see different landscapes in different countries and why teams sometimes don't, that continuously underachieve. And it could be bad ownership. It could be bad sponsorship. It just could be, unqualified GMs or people who pick players. So, yeah, I just want to see your sort of take on things on that.
And just for context, NBL isn't a league like teams in Europe where Barcelona's got a $10 million salary for their roster and spend, and there's teams that have a $2 million. It's pretty close, I would say. So last season, I'm not going to mention the team names, but the lowest spend for a team was 1.36 for a salary spend. The highest spend was just a little over 2 million, and they were the extremes. Generally, most teams are sitting. The average, I would say, is your 1.5, 1.6 for a salary spend. So it's pretty close. It's generally with every team's within 10 or 15% of each other, if that makes sense, bar the two disparities on either end. It's not one of those, people think that it's one of these things where you look at the NBL, it's that team's spending 2 or 3 million and that team's spending 1.5. It's not double. It's not double. It's really, it is pretty close within. But that's just the reality of pro sport. Biggest cities, I can speak for the Sydney Kings. Yes, we probably have a little bit more to spend, but our bills are much higher. We have an arena that can seat 18,000. Those bills are higher than an arena that can seat 4. So there is, you got to take that into context as well. We got to get more people through the door just to break even compared to a small market team. Yes, a small market team can't get as much sponsors, but those sponsors aren't necessarily just going to our roster, right? We've still got a lot of bills to pay just to turn the lights on in those big ass arenas. So it is a mix there, but and the example I would give, pro, say you own a team over here, pro. You own the pro Dunkers, right? And I'm the GM, and I call you and I say, man, this head coach is terrible. This CEO doesn't know what he's doing. We need to make a change. And then the CEO calls you and says, oh, the coach is all right, but the GM's a bit of an idiot. And then the coach calls you and says, both these guys don't get along. Right. And you're living in Dallas. What do? You know, like it's like, okay, shit, like I trust one of you more, but then I hear this from that's what I think is probably going on in Brisbane, if I had to guess. And you just got to get some feet on the ground and see it for yourself. You might need to bunker up and, you know, be out here for 2 or 3 months and just really observe with yourself. I mean, it's your money at the end of the day. Make sure that, you know, things are to your liking and you build trust with all those people. You go out to eat, you go to lunch, you go to dinner, you spend some time with them, and then you figure out who you trust more, who you don't. And then if you have to make changes, it's much easier. Whereas if you're taking other people's advice remotely from another country, pro, there's biases there, right? Like people are going to protect their own turf. Like, you know, that's how our industry works in the NBA. If you're a GM and the team's not performing, you're going to blame the coach. He can't coach for shit. I put a great roster together. The coach is going to say, this GM brought me some terrible players. I can't coach these guys, you know. So that's kind of the biggest challenge with owners that don't live kind of, you know, where that team's owned.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think if you're going to own a team, like back in the day, like in the 90s, 80s, 90s, early 2000s, a lot of the owners, because like the whole internet thing didn't hit yet, the venture capitalists wasn't as popular, where you have a lot of these younger owners that take over. A lot of the owners are older people, old banking money, old money in general, oil money. You know, some of them just really didn't come around the team unless they were deep in the playoffs. You might see them twice a year. But like in most of these teams now, like I think ownership is around a lot. They like being in the, you know, they like being sort of in the forefront. I'll take it for example, right? The Celtics. So the Boston Celtics were bought for $360 million from like the old owner. When I was there, that's how I got the job. The new ownership came over. Team's worth like $3 billion now. They got to meet Prince Harry and his wife, like came over, and like that's a big thing now. Like these owners are always around. They like being in the limelight. They like taking their picture with famous people. They like being big shots. They like, you know, it's a free publicity for them. You know, and you could run a PR firm because, you know, a lot of these like media people, they interview the owners before the games. You see Cuban and a lot of these other people, they could talk about whatever they want to talk about and get whatever message they want out there. Like it's a big thing now, and owners are always around. I think in today's day and age, I don't think you could afford to like be an absentee owner. I think you got to be there on a regular basis. You know, I'm with your sentiment. You got to be there. You got to be in the building. You got to like get a feeling for what your team's doing, what the people are like. If you're gonna have to make a change or a switch with not only a player but definitely a front office or a staff member, you got to be there. You can't just take people's word for it. And I think that the day and age of like absentee ownership on almost any league in the world is sort of out the window. I think you got to be there. So that's just my sort of sentiment towards that.
Yeah, and then on top of that, the old school NBA owners were eating dinner at 4:00 and they were in bed by 6:30 p.m. You know, a lot of these old money guys were having the early bird dinner, the early bird special at Denny's Diner, and they were asleep by 6:30. So no offense to them, they were old. You know, a lot of owners back in the day, you know, 70, 80, 90 years old. So we're seeing more of the Cuban-esque type owners that are, you know, Obama, that are passionate, 40s, 50s, even 30s at times, and they're on the sideline and they're active and they're really engaged in the business, which is great for the NBA and great for teams. So we'll watch that space, but I hope Brisbane gets better. They've got a beautiful fan base there, and you know, like I said, you bring back a guy like Aaron Baines, albeit he was hurt the whole last season. They should be better than they are. They're not a 5-17 team on paper. They should be at least in the mix for a playing game, in my opinion. Dabble meets social media. Dabble is betting meets social media, excuse me. On Dabble, you can follow your friends and mates, stalk the experts or trending tipsters, scroll through trending bets and copy them all in one click. Get alerts when your mates and expert tipsters place bets. I'm on there, of course. Yours truly, Andrew Bogut, all one word. Do some tips from time to time. So follow those for some NBA ones. Got a few right last month. So keep following me. Go on, download the app at the App Store. Dabble, all one word. Dabble socially, and you must gamble responsibly. All right, stats, useful or useless, pro. We're not going to get too much into these because I've got a shitload of them. It is a big week for some stats. First off, I'm going to give you an all-rhyme lineup, pro. Let me know what you think about this all-rhyme lineup.
Sure.
Chris Paul, So we've got Chris Paul, John Wall, LaMelo Ball, Lonzo Ball, and Taco Fall. Useful or useless?
Does it count? Does it count that Taco Fall's in China right now?
I know, but this was using any names at the time. I've sat on this for about a month before he went.
Absolutely, hey Bogues, absolutely useful to me. Absolutely,
I want to see them all in a lineup. Ball to wall to ball to wall to pole to fall. Yeah, okay.
There should be a rhyming all-star game in the summertime. Like, I think they should be in one, and I think you need like an international rhyming team for sure.
Yeah, it'd be pretty tough. But that was just a silly one. All right, so Brooklyn has a best record in the NBA since Vaughn took over pro. Useful or useless?
I'm sorry. Brooklyn has the best record what?
In the NBA since Jacques Vaughn took over. So since Jacques Vaughn officially took over the Brooklyn Nets, they have the best record in the NBA.
Useful. I got to say useful, Bogues. I think that, I mean, look, they had some issues for sure, but like we thought they were going in the tank. At least I did. And I didn't think they were going to rebound from this. And look, is it Jacques Vaughn? Is it the fact that Kyrie finally just said, you know what, I'm going to stop fucking around, and everybody just started saying, all right, let's do it, and we got this going? I don't know. I don't know the whole thing, but I'm going to say that it's definitely useful. I think he definitely had some type of impact on this, and I think that he's a big reason for it. I'm a big Steve Nash fan. I don't care about his TikTok game or not. I thought that, I thought he was good. I thought he spoke his mind. Bogues, it's hard to really figure on a coach, GM, player if you're not in the building. I mean, we could read media all we want, read social media, get all these reports, but unless we're in the building, we don't know. I'm sure there's like people that you played with or coached for, people had an idea about, in the media, in the public, but you're like, wait a minute, that's fucking nowhere further from the truth. I'm with them every day. I know I went wide on this whole thing, but I'm just saying, like, you don't know, but I definitely say it's useful for sure. I think that he definitely had impact on their resurgence.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's useful. He's done a great job. I mean, Steve Nash, whether he was hard done by or not, couldn't get those guys firing and playing together, and Vaughn has come in and done that. So definitely useful and kind of, what could have been if he started the season that way. Maybe he was the guy getting fired and the next assistant was the new breath of fresh air. So who knows? Here's a good one. I think it's a kind of a strange one that you don't hear much. But Sabonis from the Sacramento Kings has completed the most handoffs in the NBA Pro. So a handoff, for those not familiar, is when you dribble to your teammate on the three-point line, you hand the ball off to them and they come off. So it's almost like a ball screen, but it's a little bit different. Not only that, he has 200 more than the next guy in the league. Do you know who that would be? Who would be number 2?
Christian Wood.
Christian Wood? What the heck? He's a screen roller. Get out of my way. No. Jokic. Jokic is number 2. Jokic is number 2. And obviously Sabonis completing the most handoffs would mean a teammate of his would be in the running to have received the most handoffs in the NBA. Who would you guess that would be, Pro?
I'm going to go Harrison Barnes.
No, it's Kevin Huerter, funnily enough.
Okay.
So, yeah, kind of a weird stat, but I thought it was kind of, useful to know who's got the bet, who's got an influx of handoff game, and that seems to be Sabonis by more than 200. Useful or useless?
Okay, before the whole 200, I was going to say that was as useful as me eating a salad tomorrow. But now that it's 200 more, I think it's a useful stat. I think that's pretty fucking amazing. Like, if you said, like, he led it and I looked it up and he was, like, 50 over the next guy, I would say, who gives a fuck, right?
So
but
what?
200, that's pretty useful, man. That's pretty useful.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's useful. Just a nice quirky stat that I came across. And Jokic is no slouch at handoffs. I mean, his whole game is based on the split game and causing problems with his passing. So I saw that. I was like, holy shit. And Sabonis, I think, is in the running for an all-star berth this season. He should make that team. He's having a hell of a season.
And start handing off to Harrison Barnes fucking more, because he's on my fantasy team and I need some fucking help. So stop being a selfish prick and start calling plays for
He's
Harrison
playing better.
Barnes.
His numbers are surging month on month, though, at least. So towards the tail end, he's doing pretty well, Harrison.
I pick him up every year. He's been on my team a good 7 straight years. And he said, I said to him that I texted him the other night. I said, "Hey, good game," and he won me the week last week. He said, "Oh, thank you," and I texted him. I screenshotted him the like his stat line and me winning that week, and I said, "No, thank you. Keep it up, you asshole, or you're gonna be fucking cut." But yeah, no, I'm glad. But start handing off to fucking HB a little bit more, man. I need some help.
Yeah, he's definitely doing better. He got a slow start, but he's definitely balling now. So useful on that one. Next one, only 4 teams pro in the whole of the NBA, and it was 3 as of 3 or 4 days ago. But Denver climbed in there with a win against the Clippers. That would have been them. That would have been only 3 teams in the whole league, but it's 4 teams in the whole league only to have winning records this season. So 4 teams have winning records on the road this season, pro. And they basically are all on the top. I'll read through them. The Denver Nuggets are in there, road winning record of 11-10. Now, 11-10. Memphis Grizzlies at 11-10. That's it in the West. And out east, we have Boston at 15-7 and Brooklyn at 14-8. So as close of a year as we had, but to have only 4 teams with winning records, pro, useful, useless.
Folks, I think that's useful. I mean, look, if you want to be a good team in this league, you got to be able to. I'm not saying you should be 70% of wins on the road, but you got to win on the road. You got to be close to 500, if not a little bit over. I don't. Yeah, I don't understand that. That's a little bit of an anomaly to me, seeing that there's only like 4 teams that winning teams record on the road. Like we see Golden State, who's so good at home. I know there's definitely a difference. There's a different energy. There's a different preparation. There's a different everything to playing on the road in the NBA. But the whole discrepancy of only 4 teams winning on the road. Obviously not everybody can win on the road or have winning records, but like you would think 6 or 7 teams would at least be having some winning road records, even if it's like, I don't know, even if it's like 11-10 right now at home on the road. But like you would think that they would do that, but it's the discrepancies of like, some of these teams are like really good home records and really bad road records. It's pretty, head scratching for sure. What do you think, Bogues?
Yeah, it's really head scratching. Like that's usually you have at least 7 or 8, maybe not, 9, 10 sometimes that are at least 500. Look, there is a lot of teams there's a few teams that are just below 500 on the road, but something different. We spoke about it off air. I think I'm putting it down to this. So the league's changed the way the traveling's done. So teams will now fly into a city and knock out those 2 games. So like, let's say Dallas, for example, was in Portland again tonight. They played at Portland 2 nights. So you fly into Portland, you'll stay there 3 or 4 days and play that same team twice. I think it's hard to win both those games as the home team. And I think it's hard to win both those games as the away team. So because, it's I guess it's somewhat easy to defend home court if you've got 2 in a row at home, but you might take that second one for granted sometimes, or vice versa. You might be the road team. It's like, it's 2 road games. We'll get them again at home. I don't know what the psychology is, but that's the only thing that's really changed this season is you kind of, there's no more real traditional home and homes where we play you at your place, you come straight back to ours. You're knocking out both games now. So that's the one thing that's changed. I don't know if that's a huge factor, but there are some wild swings. You look at Golden State Warriors are one of them. They're 17-5 at home and they're 4-17 away. I mean, that's bipolar realm. 4-17 is almost the worst in the league. No one in the East is worse. 5-13 Toronto Raptors are the worst in the East. Even the 6-18 Charlotte Hornets have more road wins than the Golden State Warriors. And then out west, the only team that's worse than the Warriors is the 4-19 AAU Houston Rockets, right? So that's a concern. I'm not too concerned because it is the Golden State Warriors. I think they can turn it on. And I think generally teams like the Golden State Warriors historically are better on the road to an extent because when it comes nut crunching time, you're just more focused on the road. You're in more business like hotel, shoot around, meal, team film. You don't have the distractions at home. So they've flipped that on its head. They seem to be much better in their own beds at home, that raucous fan base in San Francisco. But I don't know what else I put it down to. That's kind of all I've got, bro. But it sure is interesting. You look at Denver, number 1 in the West at 11-10 on the road. So they're just over 500. They're number 1 in the West. So pretty head scratching stuff.
Yeah, agreed, and I do agree with you what you're saying about the home and the double dip on the teams on the road. Like Dallas is doing it right now. They did Portland last night. They got shellacked, and they're getting shellacked again. Last time I checked, back to back. And it is pretty interesting, especially with some of these teams. Like when you have Luka, you got to rest him the second night. That definitely does impact you. But it's funny. Like Carlisle always talked about it when I was in Dallas about, especially around holidays, about it being a big distraction being home versus the road. I never really thought about it like that. I'm like, well, certain players allow themselves to get distracted, some don't. But I guess you are right. There are, when you're on the road, you're in your hotel, you go out, maybe grab something to eat, you come back, you've got your whole shoot around deal, you come back, you take a nap. There's a lot less distractions. You could sort of like shelter everything out. You don't have your family climbing all over you. You don't have, you do have people probably calling you for tickets and stuff, but it's not, you're probably way less distracting. And now that thinking about it, I think it does make a little bit more sense than it did back then. So, yeah, the whole home road dynamic is a little bit different. So, yeah, it's a little weird though that there's only 4. I'd like to sort of take a look and study it like over the years, what the average amount of teams in maybe a 12-year period of how many of these teams average winning records on the road at the end of the season. If it is 4, is that the norm? Is it 7? Is it 8?
I think it's more than 4 generally. I have to look to 2, but I'd say it's more than 4 in general. 4's kind of, I think that's an extreme. To be number 1 in the West and be 1 game over 500, that's glaring. Usually those teams are, if you're 1 or 2 in your conference, you've definitely got a winning record. So we're just getting 4. It was 3, like I said, 3 days ago, and Denver got a big win in LA. It would have been the other way around, right? It would have been 10 and 11. So interesting nonetheless. All right, Jokic. We love our strange analytical type stats. He's first in PER. He's first in the league in plus minus. He's first in VORP. So there's something called value over replacement value, which is value over replacement. Yeah, I really have no idea what that means. I looked it up and tried to understand it, but I'm not too smart these days, pro. He's first in wins, and basically he's the advanced stat, analytics MVP of the league. Does that then turn into the MVP of the league, pro? Useful, useless?
It's pretty interesting, Bogues. As we know, I'm a pro Doncic fan for MVP, but I mean, these numbers are pretty good. Like, he's 2 in usage. He's 1. I think it's a stat that I keep too. I just get it on one of these sites. But
sorry, VORP, I fucked that up. It's value over replacement player, not value over replacement value. That makes no sense.
Right.
So value over replacement.
Do you have the number, Bogues, that spit out to you? I mean, I know he's number 1 in it, but is there an actual number that they give you for that, or you just know that he's number 1?
I don't. Basically, this is the definition is a box score estimate of the points per 100 team possessions that a player contributed above a replacement level, minus 2.0 player, translated to an average team and prorated to an 82 game season.
Okay, so right now, and maybe it's a different stat, but I think it's the same. I got it in my database right now. I'm looking at it. And I sort of get what they rank in all these stat categories in their position in the league. I think it's a box score plus minus. He's a plus 12.6. So I don't know if that's the same stat that we're talking about, but
no,
it's not.
No, it's different. It's different. Yeah, it's different.
Okay, so I think it's his plus minus when he's on the floor versus off. So he's a plus 12.6 when he's in the lineup, and that's number 1 in the league. And maybe that's another stat he's number 1 at.
It is. Yeah, I mentioned that one. Plus minus. Yeah, I've got first in plus minus, first in per, first in VORP, first in wins.
And there's actually another stat, Bogues, right? So God rest his soul. There's a gentleman that I knew for a long time. His name is Mark Warkentine. He was the GM, assistant GM in Portland. He ran the Knicks for a while. He ran Denver, and he was a mentor of mine that I would have great conversations with. And he gave me this stat that they evaluate point guards with. It's called pure point average. And I don't know how to calculate it. It's like your assists versus steals versus turnovers. And usually it's for a point guard. Usually point guards are number 1 in this list. And or maybe it's his position. He's number one at his position at 6.4, and for the league, he's number 3 in the league at. And again, this is usually a stat that point guards flourish in, and he's number 3 in that in the league. So it is pretty. I'm sorry, and he's 25th in usage in the league. That was by position before. But 12.6 plus minus, he's up. PER 32, he's number 1. And this PPA, he's number 3. I mean, the guy he's a stat sheet filler for sure. And I say it's useful. I mean, the guy does all around stuff, and his team's number 1 in the league right now. And he's definitely carrying them. And you got to say that has to be worth something.
I agree. Yeah, I think it's going to be close. I think there's a high chance there's voter fatigue with him going 3x. How many has anyone won 3x before, by the way, Pro?
3 times?
I'm not sure about that. Yeah, because MJ didn't do it, did he?
Hold on, who did?
Did MJ do it?
No. Did Bird do it? Hold on. NBA players 3-time MVP in a row. Let me see.
Oh, here we go. Moses, Larry Bird, Magic Johnson.
Let me see.
Moses, Larry, and Magic.
Yeah, Larry did it. No, I don't think Magic did it. I think Russell did it. 61, 62, 63. Chamberlain did it in 66, 67, 68. And that fucker Larry Bird, 84, 85, 86. Man, was he good.
Oh, Magic and Moses did it, just not in a row.
Yes.
Apologies.
Yeah.
You're right. Yep.
Yeah.
Wow, it's a small club. It's a small club.
That's crazy,
it's
man.
a small club. So to do 3 in a row, he's deserved as anyone. So it'll be interesting to see what the voters do. But I think my theory is I think he's going to get a bit of fatigue. I think Tatum's up there. Doncic too. If they continue to crack that top 4, has a chance as well. And Giannis is always flirting about. Embiid, I think he's missed too many games now. Thinking out of that lineup will probably hurt him a little bit. All right, last one, Pro. The Sydney Kings, Pro, are the fastest paced team outside the NBA. A little stat that was reposted by Chase Buford, the head coach, which came from Francesco Olivo. It's F_Olivo99 for those that want to check the tweet. He did a post around talking about EuroLeague teams, talking about different paces. Some interesting tidbits. The fastest EuroLeague team as of now is by far slower than the slowest NBA team. Varese and Paris, both coached by an American coach, would be fast teams in the NBA. And within all that, the Sydney Kings are the fastest outside of the NBA, Pro. So interesting. And Chase loves to get that pace going. We really try to push the ball and get extra possessions. But just an interesting stat. Useful, useless?
I say it's useful. I mean, that's pretty. I mean, especially in international. I know it's probably, again, without studying it, I'm just gonna sort of guess. I would assume that Australia is a faster pace than Europe, for the most part, but still, like,
there's a mix. Yeah, there's a mix. There's some teams that grind you, and there's some teams that run. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't expect them to be the fastest team outside the NBA. In my opinion. So, yeah, I think there's definitely some validity to that.
Agree. I'm useful in that one as well. I thought it was very, very interesting, and I love seeing these kind of random stats from people when they encompass the world and pace and comparing leagues. I find that kind of stuff really interesting. I hope everyone else does too. All right, fact or fake news, and we are done.
Bogues, a lot of talk about Victor Wembanyama. Have you seen him?
Just probably the same highlights you've seen, yeah.
Is he good enough to take He is good enough to take an NBA team year 1 into the playoffs. Fact or fake news?
Well, it depends. It depends what team we're talking, Pro.
Okay.
If you're saying like the Orlando Magic, yeah, for sure. I think you put him on that team, they're around that mark. I think because they've got enough kind of currency playing well with what they've kind of got already, that another piece like that would be huge. Houston Rockets, no, in my opinion, because they're gonna have an issue there with who's the man. Even though he'll clearly be the man, you got a couple of knuckleheads on that team who won't want to give up the podium or the ball, especially for an international player, in my opinion. Who else you got in contention? You got the Spurs, OKC, and probably the Lakers will lose their pick, so they won't get him. I think it depends where he lands. It's a tough one. Depends where he lands. I don't think it's a given. You look out east. Like if you put him on Charlotte today, are they? Would you say Charlotte would make it?
No,
you're saying playing. You're saying playing, right? Playing, not playoffs. Playing, right?
Yeah, top eight.
Top 8. Okay,
I would say top 8. Yeah, Bogues, I would say no. Like I would just go with the numbers, but I do agree it depends on the team. I'll tell you what. Like I was talking to an NBA front office person yesterday about it, and like you see some predicaments teams get themselves into. Like they get a franchise player, and we don't know how good this guy's going to be. He's really good, don't get me wrong, but you have no idea how good he is. He's 7'2". A lot of players 7'2" at that build. Sometimes they get into some issues. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. But like having assets around that player that you can go forward with and keep re-signing guys that could really help your team win, and then you get this guy. You don't have the pressure like Dallas has with Doncic to try to acquire new players to sort of keep everything, going forward with that situation. Where like Houston, we call them, Houston Elite AAU team, which they are. They're a fucking AAU team. But like they do have some talent. So like if they did get Victor, right? Now you've got Jalen Green and Jabari Smith and Sengun and him, and it's actually a pretty good situation. Jason Tate and, Tyrese, and they got some decent players. And then you throw him in the mix. And then if you keep re-signing your guys and you get this, now you've got this sort of team around him, which would be good for him long term, where if you just draft this guy and you've got a bunch of role players that, really don't have a clear-cut number 2, you might, fear losing him after that second deal. I don't think he's good enough to take a team year 1 into the playoffs. That's really hard to do, but it depends. Like if it is Orlando, you're right. It'll probably, that will probably put them over the edge, but it's really hard. Like even LeBron couldn't do it. Kobe couldn't do it. Year 1, it's really hard to like take a situation that's not really a winning one and then just willed themselves into the playoffs with them. Like, well, Kobe, I think they were already a playoff team when they got Kobe, but like most of these guys, it's really hard, to really like learn how to carry a team and sort of do what needs to be done year 1, especially when you're that young coming in. I'd probably say fake news. I don't think he'll be able to take a team to the playoffs year 1. The only thing that will probably go against that is if he's on Orlando or maybe Oklahoma City or something like that. But if he's like Houston and some of these teams like that, I don't think he really makes much of a difference win-wise.
Yeah, I agree. I'll fake news it. And guess what? Second episode in a row, pro for some self-pub. There is, guess what? This is an amazing stat. This was told to me when I was playing back that year. There's only 3 number 1 picks to ever make the playoffs their rookie year, bro. Only 3. Have a guess at who one of those is.
3 number 1 picks. I got to say you.
Yes.
Yeah.
How'd you know that? That is amazing.
I'm pretty fucking good.
Now, I'm not saying I wasn't the be all and end all. I was 9-7 a night, so it wasn't all my doing. But I was one of the fortunate NBA first picks to make it their rookie year. There's 2 other ones.
I'm gonna say David Robinson.
Nope.
Really? He didn't make the playoffs?
His rookie year?
Hold on, Bogues. I think
was he the number 1 pick though?
Yes.
No. Was he the first pick though?
Yes. Hold on. I'm going to check that out because I'm a big fan of David Robinson.
You might be right, actually.
David, because here's the thing, Bogues, which was like will never happen today. He got drafted. He was out of the Navy. He had to wait 2 years to play in the NBA. And then what happened was his rookie year, they hold on. They were 56 and 26 his rookie year because they put like Terry Cummings. They put like Terry Cummings. They put Sean Elliott with him. He had Vernon Maxwell on his team. He had Rod Strickland. He had a good team. I was a huge fan of that team that year. And again, he gets drafted.
You're right. It's 4. You're right.
So there's 2.
I just checked it. Yeah, they were 31 and 51 the year before. Yeah. Yep. You're right. There's 4.
But waiting 2 years. a fucking 7-footer had to go on a submarine for 2 years. Imagine how fucked up that is. I mean, imagine that. Like, they'd have the ASPCA or whatever suing the fucking NBA, $20 million lawsuit to force him out. This fucker's like in a sub fucking, he's fucking, what's it called? He's cleaning bird shit off the fucking aircraft carriers and shit and being in submarines and loading submarine fucking torpedo, while he could have been making millions in the NBA. That's unbelievable. All right, so that's 2. Was Hakeem Olajuwon number 1?
No, I don't believe you. Was that
Patrick? All right, Patrick Ewing.
No.
What's it?
One's a Laker.
Okay, number 1 pick. Magic Johnson.
Yep, that's one, and the other one is a former teammate of the guy you just spoke about before.
Spoke about in one of these 4.
Yep.
Oh, Tim Duncan.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah.
Yep. So I remember we had Terry Stotts as our head coach, and I was playing like 20, 25 minutes, was playing well, but up and down. And Terry used that as a stat to the media to kind of pump me up a little bit. Hey, do you guys know not many number 1 picks have made the playoffs? You know how many it was? And it was 4 at the time. I totally bombed on Robinson. So
how about that? You're 1 of 4. And hey, that stat is useful, by the way.
You're not fired. Great. But yeah, that was just an interesting. Don't get the opportunity to pat myself on the back 2 episodes in a row, bro. And I know you gave me a lot of shit last time, and all these assholes in the comments were laughing at you, saying shocker. But here's another week for it. What else you got for us?
Hey, pat yourself on the back. I should have got you a giant hand to pat yourself on the back with every week, but I didn't get
the Homer back scratcher.
Yeah, I need to do that. All right, Bogues, we're gonna talk about the Memphis Grizzlies and the Brooklyn Nets. All right, both or at least one. They're 2 seeds right now. One of those teams will make the NBA Finals. Fact or fake news?
Ooh, I'm gonna go. Right now, I think Boston's gonna make it.
You get
Boston's
the Celtics.
Got a high chance.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say one of them. Yeah, I think I'd say one of them will. I don't think it's going to be Memphis, though. I think I'm going to side with Boston. But Memphis is a good insurance policy on the back of it. But I don't think they're ready yet. But Boston's hard to bet against, man. They look like a well-oiled machine. So I'm going to go fact on that one, bro.
Yeah, I'm going to say fake news. I think they'll probably fall short. I don't think Brooklyn's good enough. I don't think they match up with Boston well enough. And you don't really know what's going to happen with their seeding. Like if they're going to go to 3, they're going to go to 4, anything like that, Bogues. So I'll say fake news on that. I usually say fact on a lot of stuff, but I'll probably say fake news, even though I thought up the fucking question, which makes me more of a moron than one would think. So yeah, I'll say fake news. I don't know. I mean, Memphis might be good enough, but Denver, Golden State, you never know. All right, Bogues. Right now, Phoenix Suns sitting at number 10. The Phoenix Suns will finish out of the top 10.
Actually, they're 11. They're 11 actually
right now?
Utah's jumped them. Yep, Utah's in 10. Phoenix is 11 at 21 and 23.
Right
they're
now,
tied with Utah, but Utah have an extra win. So
okay, I'll rephrase. The Phoenix Suns, I was going to say fall out of the top 10. I'm going to say fall out of the top 8. And not after the play-in, but just before the play-in, just as a solidify spots. They will finish in the outside of the top 8. Fact or fake news?
So it comes down to diagnosis of getting them healthy first and foremost. But from what I'm seeing out there, they don't look good right now. Minnesota's taking a little surge as well, by the way, so congrats to them. But it's so close. You look at Denver, Memphis, New Orleans, Sacramento. That's the 5.5 games from first. Is Sacramento in 4th. Then you've got Dallas, 7 games behind. Clippers, 8 games behind. Minnesota, 8.5. Golden State, 9. Portland, 9. Utah Jazz, 9.5. Phoenix in 11, 9.5. Oklahoma City, they're in 12th, 9.5. And the Lakers, 10.5. So you've got essentially 10 spots. Or 13 to 5, so 8 spots, sorry, within 2 games of each other. It's insane. I love it. I think this is great. I think it's great for the game. It keeps you engaged, has teams that, won't blatantly tank like a Utah Jazz was supposed to. But Phoenix, I just don't see them finishing above anyone above them. Maybe the only team is Minnesota. They're 7 right now. I could see them potentially falling down. But shit, I'd take Utah over Phoenix right now. As of today, just in the way they play, I think Utah are a tough beat. They play hard. They play well. Phoenix look like they don't like each other. Their rotations are all over the place. They've got a lot of injuries. And there's reports out of there that, Aiden's not too happy still, even though he signed that extension, or they matched that extension. So there is some turmoil. I don't think they get back to 8. I think they'll probably scratch a plane, 9, 10. But yeah, I'm going to say fact they're going to stay out of that top 8.
Yeah, I'd say fact too. I mean, it's a lot. It's like, who's going to fall out? That's the thing. Like, Dallas is going to stay. Obviously Denver, Memphis, New Orleans, you would think is going to stay top 3.
We'd usually say Sacramento. So they've still got a chance. Yeah. It still is Sacramento, bro. But they're lighting that beam. They're lighting that beam a lot. They're playing well,
dude. It's still It's Sacra fucking Mento. You're right. That's what they should name themselves again. Sacra fucking Mento. That's what.
If they don't make the even. I mean, playing. They should definitely make a plane. They're 4 games.
No, seriously.
If they drop out.
They drop out, you put them right in the CBA in China. That's it. Like, no, don't pass go, don't collect $200. You're going to you're going to go, your new home is in Guang fucking Zhou. So, you're going to Guangzhou. If you can't.
They cannot fall out here. They have won 4 straight. They're 24-18, but I'm just saying it's still Sacramento. You're like, man, like.
It's no Sacra fucking Mento. Instead, I'm just renaming all these teams. Houston Elite AAU. And it's Sacra fucking Mento. And
Sacramento is one of those teams that they could have a 6-game lead. I mean, they could be 6 games away from playoffs with 5 games left and still somehow get eliminated.
You ever watch Bogues, you ever watch The Bronx Tale?
No, I haven't.
Great movie. Robert De Niro, unbelievable movie. So it's like this mob movie about this kid that's like. That lives in Brooklyn, and he lives like next to this sort of club with all these gangsters in it, right? So there's this one character named Eddie Mush. Guy loses every fucking bet, degenerate gambler, right? There's one of the iconic scenes in this movie where they're at the horse track, and they all bet the same horse, and they all like all this, the mob, the kid, they all bet, they're all fucking excited. They're like, there's no way they're going to lose, right? Then all of a sudden, coming out of the fucking door is Eddie Mush fucking, like, you got to look it up. It's great. He's like cheering for this horse. They got him. The gangster looks up, see that Eddie Mush bet the horse. He starts grabbing everybody's tickets and ripping them up. And they're like, Sonny, what are you doing? He goes, it's fucking over. Eddie Mush bet the fucking horse. We're done. The fucking horse is going to lose. That's Sacra fucking Mento. They're Eddie Mush of the NBA. But it's only 3.5 games, Bogues. It's a great. I'm gonna send it to you. It's a YouTube clip, but it's Sacramento. You never know, but you gotta think that they're gonna stay sort of 4 to 8. Like 4, they probably won't finish 4 because Golden State's gonna make a run. The Clippers are gonna finally start playing guys. You never know what's gonna happen with Dallas. Minnesota's gonna drop. If I had to guess, Minnesota drops, Utah drops, but like. I don't know how many more teams are going to fucking drop out of that. Right now, they're 11. Now, who'd you say is 10? Is Portland 10?
Portland 9, Utah 10. But Utah's they're the same record. Yeah. Utah just have an extra win. So Utah have an extra win, extra loss.
Yeah. I say they're going to fall out of the top 8. I don't think they finish top 8. And there's a chance they finish out of the top 10. I'm like, San Antonio, you can't catch San Antonio, you can't catch Houston. The Lakers are going to make some sort of a run. I don't know what that is. You don't know what Davis is going to do. I don't think Oklahoma City will allow themselves to get up there. I think they're going to be they're trying to increase their odds, obviously, for victory.
And then Phoenix's next 4 at Memphis, Brooklyn at home, Indy at home, and Memphis at home. So, I mean, that could be a 1 and 3 right there as well.
Yeah, like if I'm them, Bogues, like I'm sort of sitting in the cut there, and like you're not going to catch those teams like Houston or whatever from Phoenix, but like Booker's out. But I don't think Booker's going to be out that much longer, and they're going to want to make a run there. But I'll tell you what, from what we're hearing about, I talked to a couple of media people the last couple of days, and it's really bad in Phoenix. It's really bad. And like, with team unity and all that, like, I mean, things could go south there. Do you just say fuck it and you just say next year? I don't think you can do that. I think you got to keep rolling forward with it. But I don't know, man. If you got that much turmoil, you got that much injury stuff, you got the whole Crowder deal. I don't know, man. It's interesting, man. I don't know where they go from here. But I don't think they finish. They will not finish in the top 8.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's they need those guys back that are hurt, but even with them back, I think their locker room's in some shambles. They've got some things to figure out. So Monty Williams is going to have his work cut out for him. All right, that wraps up another episode of the Basketball Series. Appreciate everyone's support. Please like, subscribe, share, do all those fun things. Numbers continue to grow, so we appreciate that. And we'll see you all next week.
Later, guys. See you next week.
Let's get rogue.